me ask you something real quick.
Mm.
Um, I just need to know, and I don't know if you can tap into it at the moment or anything like that, but something happened to my mom when I was 13 that what I tend to term she either wound up with a completely cracked mind, okay, a cracked psyche, or she was possessed, or at this point in my life, I'm wondering if she hadn't been negatively impacted as a small child by an alien abduction of some sort. Something horrific happened to her that broke her. And it was the biggest heartbreak in my young life. I left home at 15 because I couldn't cope with the fact that she wound up with split personalities and just all kinds of, when she had prior to all of this been the most beautiful, spiritually loving, wise human being that I've ever known in my entire life. But this life broke her. Did you pick up anything of that story or the dregs of that in any of what you've looked at?
What I did pick up on is that your parents were playing an important role in preparing your mind and your psyche for your galactic soul mission. So, and what I also connected to before we spoke was that there is a lot of dark alliance energetical connections through genetic lineage and the environment where you were born in. And even in your chart, you have what Elena Danan calls dark alliance connections. And I feel what I was shown is that you are meant to, expose them in some way through your own experience. So you having firsthand experience of mind control and possession, soul shift through your own parents, that's the story again that needs to be shared in some graceful way, or perhaps you offering platform to other people that are really strongly called to be the whistleblowers, but you hold space and they'll feel safe because you can totally relate to what they're saying from your own experience. So I'm not sure if you are looking at the Starseeds astrology chart, but your mother has a connection to the Orion Nebula and Betelgeuse, and also your father connected to Bellatrix and Mintaka. So these are all of the Orion outposts of these service to self beings. There is a connection through the work where they are the environment. So I've noticed only that you were born on Air Force Base.
No, and what's interesting too is my biological father did not raise me. So I was the only product of a teenage marriage, okay, back in my mom's young teenage years. He was in, I think, the Korean War. So he was just like an Air Force soldier guy. And we honestly, even though I think we tried hard through the years of my adult life to develop some sort of understanding and some sort of a relationship, I never emotionally really connected to him. And I don't think he really did to me either. Conversely, when my mom had her experience when I was 13, she was long down the road in her life, married to another man who adopted myself and my 3 younger siblings. He was very connected in setting up computer defense systems in the 60s for the Air Force. I felt a much deeper emotional connection to that man because he was the one who played the role of father. And so when all this happened with my mom, I know that they were into automatic writing in those days. And so I don't know, I was just a kid, so I'm just out playing, doing my own thing, right? Not thinking about what's going on, but absorbing what's going on with the parents, in general. And then the next thing I know, my mom's being, from her perspective, well, first of all, she did tell me before she cracked up that she had 2 separate celestial visitations. One by a woman named Rose that she watched walk down from literally the heavens, walk through the wall into her living room and, give her a message. The other one was, she said, a very tall, beautiful, angelic man looking person that came through her bedroom wall in a big, well, best way she could describe it was like a clear bubble vehicle of some sort. So, I've often wondered what happened, because it destroyed our family. It destroyed, blew it apart, blew our family apart like a bomb hit.
Yeah.
And there was no picking up the pieces ever.
So directly connected to your father, mother, there is connection to these darker. Have you read Elena Danan's book? The Gift from the Stars?
3 of them. I've read 3 of her books. I love her.
Great.
Yeah.
So, and also your South Node nodes are conjunct opposite Rigel, and your Sun, Moon, they have opposites to Bellatrix Orion. So the fact that it's opposites, your path, your mind, your heart is all opposing that. It means you are part of your life story is to expose that, or to be working out of, not in alignment, because it's either this or that. It's either darkness or light with regards to these beings. And just the fact that it's a Sun and Moon kind of representing mother, father archetypes in your experience, and with regards to the collective, the 11th house, it's that. So I feel what I was getting is that your mother soul is a starseed soul. She's a galactic as well, and she agreed to have this experience in order to prepare you for your role as a exposer, whistleblower, in whatever way you choose. There is no pressure. You'll need to feel that calling, activated within you, not just because I say it. So when we were talking about it, I checked whether it was, mind control or possession, or one of these darker service to self reptilians coming through or manipulating her. And I'm getting very, very strongly yes.
That it was more of a demonic intervention of negative energy. I always felt that way.
It's a reptilian energy. It's a reptilian frequency, very, very strongly, which feels demonic, which feels very dark, very service to self, and very, literally driving you insane with horrific images and stuff and lies and deceit and truth. You don't even know what's true, what isn't true, just driving yourself crazy. And first, of course, deceiving through appearing as light, appearing as angel, or appearing as someone that helps you. But then as you invite that entity in, they start lowering the frequency down as much as possible, because that's where they thrive and that's what they feed off of. So
what you just said made me completely understand so much so fast from what I witnessed as a child, as a young teenage girl, of what her transformation went to, because when she first became what we call mentally ill, she told me, I said, "Mom, what is going on with you?" And she said, "Cindy, you don't want to know." And I said, "Please, I need to understand." And she said, they're telling me that they're going to chop my head off. They're threatening me, in every way possible. She said, "I can't even repeat to you the horrible things they're saying to me." And so, I can't even, I witnessed so much.
It would be classified as psychosis, by the psychiatrists, or schizophrenia and so on. But these are actual real entities, 4-density reptilian beings.
I sensed something like that. Yeah. When I left home at 15, I ran because I knew I couldn't help her. And she was like way out there. And it has been the biggest heartbreak of my life. And I've always been asking, what happened, God, what happened? But my instincts always said it had some kind of a demonic leaning to it. Now, it's taken me many years to even get to the place to where I even began to even think about an alien attachment to her. Okay. It's actually just been recently that I've come to ask myself that. In fact, I just recently, a few weeks ago, I had a talk with my brother about it, that I'm beginning to wonder if Mom hadn't been impacted by the Sakar, by someone, a dark alien extraterrestrial being, because the darkness that went with this whole experience was way past what I perceive to be regular mental illness stuff.
Absolutely.
Way past it.
You're so right about that. And what I was also sensing before we connected was that the darkness has their eyes on you. They know how high up you can connect and how high up you come from, and they would have tried to deliberately sabotage your mission, your purpose, but you have so much divine protection at the same time. I did ask about any entity attachments or even stuff. Actually, in fact, I almost forgot. When I tuned in, the first thing, I was stopped and I was shown a wall of protection that you have. And I had to introduce my intention. I had to be very clear and specific about what I'm about to do, that I'm here to serve you, to support you. And only then they opened it and allowed me to, or they agreed to then give me the information in a truthful way. When I tuned in first time, there was distortion to truth. The first question I ask, is there something that is causing distortion or blocking my access to truth? And very strongly, yes. And it wasn't that it's you're deceiving me, but you actually have like some kind of technology, something that protects you. You have like a protective wall technology that they wanted you to know about through me tapping into it. So how does that sound?
That is very, very interesting, because I have to tell you that, I mean, all my life, I left home at 15 with nothing, and no home to go back to. And so I and I was so naive. I mean, so innocent and naive. I just had never, I wasn't a kid who hardly even got spanked. So I didn't understand violence. I didn't understand how ugly people could be. And boy, I was thrown right into that kind of stuff, from the get-go, out of the chute. And, but all through everything that I've ever been through, where a million times I should have died, God protected me. Someone protected me. Yep. And I've always felt that strong shield of protection around me, always. So it's not surprising to hear you say that.
And that dipping deep into darker shadow side of humanity was also part of your destiny. You were also meant to experience that, clearly with Saturn in Scorpio and your midheaven in Scorpio, your Mars in Scorpio. You are meant to go into these deeply transformational experiences as well, but not be afraid of it as a result of it. And then part of your mission that will be revealing these things in a peaceful way, not being triggered emotionally anymore by it. Or, you clearly have done huge amount of healing, and the cancers that you cleared, this was all just an echo of ancestral experience of misuse and abuse of power and having no boundaries, because there was this dominant controlling energy. So I wonder if you know about your great grandparents, and beyond that, has there been any stories of very dominant person and very submissive energy within the mother-father dynamic?
On the maternal side of my mom's genetic line, we can trace our family history back to, I don't know if you've heard the story, it's an American story, between the Hatfields and McCoys, the battle between the Hatfields and McCoys of West Virginia. We're direct descendants of the Hatfield side. And specifically, there were 13 children born during the Civil War era in the United States out of this one Hatfield family unit we were tied to. Only 2 ultimately survived the Civil War. Most of them were boys. They were men. They went to war. They died. But there was the leader of that particular family unit, okay, was a murdering, vicious son of a bitch, okay? And maybe he felt he had to be, to protect his large family, his land, where there, it was a rough era in America's history with the Civil War raging and, all that stuff. They were, not so far distant in their time, from the early settlers 100 or 150 years prior to that, of the West Virginia hills and that sort of thing. So there was a rough and tumble group. And so, yeah, very, very dark, murderous, ugly stuff. And then on my mom's father's side, he was not a very good man. and I honestly have always resented him so much for what he did to her. I've never even looked at his side of the family line. I don't care. He was enough.
So this is something that you were clearing, and what I was shown is that through even previous generations, there was constantly, and this is something that was revealed to me recently, which is incredible to see, that light souls have been trying to hijack these dark, vicious family dynamics for a really long time, actually, since the beginning. We would, just like the, dark souls are holding precious their bloodlines and they keep reincarnating there.
Right.
And even trying to bring in the light soul genetics into their lineages to make them stronger. Royal bloodlines do that. The same tactic is also used by light forces, where they constantly let high frequency souls incarnate into these families to make it less and less potent evil.
That makes sense. Maybe to clear some of that negative karmic energy and the curse of the bloodline, so to speak.
Yes.
So that makes sense.
You're one of these. So you're one of these healer souls, and clearly your experience with beating 3 cancers speaks volumes of it. And I felt strong reassurance when I asked about your health and going forward. I believe you'll have a long life. You still have many years ahead of you. It feels like you are starting a whole new incarnation now. So I wouldn't worry that way. But in terms of your legs, I'm not sure how often do you walk, or
that's part of the problem. Is I can't walk very far, and because my left thigh just stops, it just seizes up, and so I'm wondering. I've had a lot of tests, medical tests, and they can't. There's no blood clots, there's no cancer. They can't figure out what's wrong. So I'm wondering if I'm hanging on to something in that part of my body that I need to clear.
So this is energetic, and it's directly linked to your mother's lineage. I'm not sure if you know that everything that manifests on the left side of the body is related to the feminine and to the mother side and to the mother lineage, and everything on the right side of the body is related to the father's lineage. The fact that it is a leg, it speaks volumes about the ancestral stock energies being shown there. And if you feel it's more in the muscle, it's about flexibility and your hesitation about moving forward to fulfill your destiny, to fulfill your calling, because there is a conflict of values within your being. One side of you, aligned with your soul's calling, wants you to step forward free from any limitations of the past, any fear of judgment, or whatever it may be. You're meant to share your truth and speak your truth and expose the truth. But then there's other side of you that feels, is questioning whether it's a good idea, whether it's safe. What will my family say? Am I going to hurt them by talking about these things? Will they understand? What will happen? So you need to find clarity and really reflect on what is at stake here. What about your mother? Is she still with us? Or
I know. No, she died a number of years ago, which I wanted to tell you that right before she died, my brother had called me, and he was taking care of her at the time. They lived like 5 hours away from me. And he called and said, "Sis, mom's in the hospital. She's not going to make it. You got to get here." And so I left work and headed for home and to pack and get ready to go. And the minute I pulled into the driveway, we live in the country. The first thing I noticed was that our entire property, which has huge pine trees all the way around it, was thousands and thousands of black crows were sitting in the trees, and they were coming in huge swirls from all over the place, from every direction, and coming to our property and landing in our trees. And I went, "Oh my gosh, what is going on?" And so, my husband was home, and we were both marveling at it, going, "What does this mean?" And then we jumped in the car and we headed across the state. We got there. My sister flew out from Chicago, and then my mom, died in the hospital. And up to that point, it was a clear, calm, perfectly non-windy day. My sister flew in, my husband picked her up at the airport, no wind, no nothing. And then, literally 30 minutes later, she got there right after my mom passed. And then as we left the hospital, a violent wind came up suddenly. Just, I mean, vicious kind of wind. And when we got back to my brother's house, because my mom was passed out now, gone, her spirit was gone. The wind was so severe, we pulled up in front of my brother's little house, and it was literally trying to rip the screen door off of his side door. It was so vicious. And I looked at my sister and she looked at me and I said, it feels like a dark host is pissed off. A dark entity is pissed off that it's lost its host. That's what went through me. And we both just kind of looked at each other and went, yeah, So speaking again of, circling about what happened to her, to my mom, if it was indeed true that she had an extraterrestrial, reptilian attachment
and high level
soul type attachment,
and high level one,
high level,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then that would make that whole scenario, make a whole lot of sense to me. Maybe it just verifies to me that we were right in our assessment in that moment in time, that whatever had attached itself to her, was venting its fury, and I don't have, maybe that sounds really bizarre, but because, does a high level, Sakar reptilian entity have the ability to create a fire, not a firestorm, but like a windstorm, so to speak, in their energetic release of their own frustration and anger? Do they? I don't know.
Absolutely. Yes.
So,
yes.
Wow.
They do very much so, because they know very well how to work with the elements, and with the astral planes and with the ether, and they're very skilled in that regard. If they want to, they know how to.
That's very interesting.
They know how to do all these things. Okay, I'm just curious what I'm getting is Maytra, and I'm not sure. I'll have to look into it because I've never come across it before. If they do that, but I'm getting Maytra.
Maytra. Yeah, I've read a little about them. They're pretty dark.
Yeah, they are apparently one of the most feared ones. And let me just see if they are connected to the Andromeda galaxy. Hang on.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so then if I check that in your chart, yeah. Okay, yeah. Oh my goodness, it is. So your mother, so within your chart, connected to your mother, if you look at that, then the Andromeda galaxy trine is there. You have that in several places in your chart, but I also believe through that same energy comes the light of the Andromeda galaxy and the vertex. So I'm actually very confident in saying that it was Maytra that was possessing her.
Okay.
And I'm also confident in saying that you had highly advanced Andromedan beings coming to interfere, making sure that it is not succeeding at stopping you at your mission that is going to be important for the collective going forward. And again, I want to say no pressure. There are many others that do play a role. We're in this together. So you are going to be guided. It's going to happen very organically. Like it will happen so naturally for you. So don't worry about how it's going to happen. You have actually very strong connection. Your crown chakra is very open. You really do trust the intuitive guidance you're receiving. You have like full-on channel there through your crown chakra.
Good. What is your take on the crows? How do you interpret that?
Yes, that it's just a physical manifestation of a very dark force energy that was making itself known, that was really activated there. But I feel also it is part of your testimony, your story, that it's from if I'm tapping to it from that much higher perspective, it is all part of the plan of what is meant to be shared through you in your future, you know?
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. I appreciate that.
Like you're meant to know the high level caliber consciousness that you are connected to, you know? And when there is a lot of light, there is also a lot of dark at the same time. So
right.
It's a validation.
Well,
for you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm beginning to understand that a lot of the heavy darkness that my soul has brushed against in this lifetime clearly was meant to clarify for me the depths that darkness can go to, because I don't think I was really all that aware of it in this lifetime anyway. Okay, maybe in other lifetimes I was more than aware of it. I don't know, but you know, I was always very innocent in my youth and thinking the world was my cherry. And if I just loved people enough and reached out in friendship and love, that I would get the same thing in return. But that hasn't really always been the case. And I have found that true love from people is a pretty rare commodity in this world. And so I'm beginning to understand through this conversation with you that all the harsh stuff that I've experienced in my life and the real dark stuff, especially back in my youth with my mom, okay, I can see now clearly, and I'll have to contemplate this deeper, but I can see how it was all meant to teach me to first be able to recognize that kind of darkness for what it is,
yes.
Because I was such an innocent and could only see the light, only understood the light. And now this journey in this life has definitely led me to, by experience, a deeper understanding of what the darkness actually is and what actually exists within it, and maybe because of it, if that makes sense. So.
Yes, absolutely. And that also explains why when I asked about how much karma you were born with at the time of your birth, there was 83-ish% that you agreed to take on and live through and then gain higher perspective to clear it. But it was all ancestral and collective. It seems you came here with, you didn't come here as a soul that is stuck on a karmic wheel. And even at this point, you're karma free, I believe, when I checked. And, I get all kinds of numbers for my clients. But the way you describe the purity of your soul throughout your childhood, it just confirms what the numbers that I did get. So it's not like you suffered because you deserved it or because something you've done. You experienced the darkness because you agreed to bring your light into it, to then blast it. You came to kind of connect with it, to understand it compassionately, and be able to better navigate the times that we're living in exactly right now and going forward. I want to go back to that leg
That makes sense.
Your mother, I want to check on her soul, how she's doing. So my question is, have you done any healing clearing work on helping your mother's soul, or you didn't get a chance to?
I can't really say that I really thought about it. I know that, we surrounded her with prayer during her passing. We were all holding hands, the whole family, and we're lifting her to the light.
Okay. Is it true that your mother's soul still needs healing and help from us at this time? So getting a yes for that. And is that
so? How do we go about? How do we?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
And is that why the leg is causing trouble? And it's not really something medical, so very strong yes on that. So it's your mother's soul calling for attention and for truth to set her free. Okay. So then the pain can go, because there is an aspect of her experience that needs to be liberated within your own consciousness, within your own being and understanding of what she was actually going through. So the message I'm getting from her is that you want to understand that her experience was a sacrifice that she on higher soul level agreed to, and that she did not mean to cause you any of the suffering that you went through, or discomfort or pain or sadness that you lived through as a young teenager, and that all was part of a higher divine plan. And if you can hold that in your heart to really connect now with the teenager inside you, I want you to connect now with the idea of you 13, 12, 14, 15, 16 years old. I want you to expand your heart and invite that teenage you into your heart space. And I want you to feel your mother's higher self to also hold her tightly. So the teenager is between the two of you, holding her tightly, helping the teenage you, releasing her suppressed anger and resentment and pain and grief. And also guilt that you may unconsciously carry for leaving her, leaving her behind and running away. I want you to feel your leg, left leg, through bones, muscles, nerves, skin. I want you to feel, see, sense purple light energy, golden light energy, white light energy flowing through it, through the crown, through the heart, down into your leg. Feel the pelvic floor as well, receiving that light. I'm just washing away all those heavy, dense emotions of the age when you were 11, 12, and until the adult time, clearing it like a ripple effect. You now have higher understanding of what actually happened. I want you to, as I speak now, the teenage can now start connecting to divine mother archetype and the love of the mother that you need is available to you. The wisdom of the mother that you need is available to you now and going forward. The support of the mother, the feminine, healthy feminine that you need is available to you now and going forward. You are now connecting the teenager aspect of your consciousness, of your being, with that higher understanding now. We want to thank her because everything she went through was such a brave, courageous journey to be born to that family. We want to honor her strength, her courage, her choice, her path. No matter what she did or didn't do, she's worthy of your unconditional love and support. May she know it, may she receive it. We want to thank your body as well for carrying all that density through those challenging experiences when you witness your mother being helpless, powerless, dissolving all that, washing it away from your leg. I want you to feel, see, sense the three of you, your current version, your teenage versions of you, and your mother's highest self. See her in beautiful golden white light energy. See all of you now uplifted higher and higher, acknowledging your highest truth, that you are all liberated, connected to divine source of love and wisdom. You are connected through your mother's lineage, through frequency of highest wisdom and highest divine love that's unconditional. You are now dissolving throughout the left side of your body any traumatized feminine, any low frequency of female experience. As you now understand the frequency of traumatized feminine, what that looks like, what that feels like, dissolving then, and giving your body permission to feel safe to connect to divine feminine that is within you, within your lineage of ancestors, highest selves, the many different soul connections that you have. All is well. You stay connected. You keep the wisdom and love of your mother. Dissolve everything else. I want you to send thanks and gratitude and appreciation to your leg for carrying that message patiently until you understand. We now release that messenger. The pain can go. We recognize the difference between feeling connected to feminine aspects of your being and the difference between you sensing your mother's helpless, powerless experience of stress, tension, anxiety, and all those crazy notions that she was going through, that she was living. We want to dissolve that. You create now positive association with feeling connected to divine feminine, letting your body know it is safe to be connected to your feminine intuitive guidance, divine feminine.
Thank you.
Mm.
I actually feel the pain going in that leg. When you started, the pain kind of rose up, even though it normally doesn't really bother me when I'm sitting. But when you brought it to the fore of my attention, it like rose up. The pain rose up. It's the best way I can describe it in my leg, and I was aware of it. As I went with you into that, I felt a release. I felt it release, and I'm going to continue doing the work.
It was wonderful. Keep bringing purple and golden and white light energies. There's one major realization that is coming through here, and that is that you witnessed your mother trusting her intuition and being deceived. And there is a part of you, that teenager part of you, that is blocking you connecting to your intuition fully and trusting it. That part of you is worried that if you start connecting to these, extraterrestrial beings and guides, that the same will happen to you. We are letting that part of you know.
Oh my God, you've pinned it.
Yeah. So we want to let that part of you know. We want to let that part of you know that because you witnessed what happened, you are now able to discern between frequencies of deception, manipulation, darkness, false light. Thank you, Mother, for living that for me, for you. And as a result of that, you also can recognize highest frequencies of truth, pure light, divine love. And for that reason, that wisdom dwells within you through experience. You can trust that it is safe for you to listen to that intuitive, instinctive guidance. Your body will know because of what you lived through. So it's safe for you to trust higher guidance and step forward free.
That is so powerful. And so powerful too, for me to understand that the left side of my body is the carrier of the elements that are tied to being a witness to what happened to my mother. Because interestingly enough, not all of every single one of them, but recent issues in my body in the last, say, 14 years, 14, 15, 16 years, have been on the left side of my body. As an example, breast cancer, okay, left breast. Not anything major to where I had to have the breast removed, but one of the manifestations of my mom's illness, if you want to call it that, was a constant tweaking of her left nipple, which I had to constantly say, Mom, you just don't do that in public. You don't do that around. It's not polite behavior. I had to explain that constantly because she was so disconnected to just normalcy, and so the part of my breast that was affected literally was the outer part of my nipple. So they had to go in and remove a small tumor and, sew me back up. Then the other piece of it, my recent stuff is heavy gout in my left foot, and it keeping me from walking even recently last year. So, and of course the left thing in the thigh. So now that I understand, okay, that all of these things are being manifested from that particular era in my life, because of what I witnessed and the trauma it had on me emotionally and psychologically. And you pinned it a minute ago when you said that there's a part of me that's very hesitant and afraid to let myself go in the direction that I know I'm meant to go in regards to that extraterrestrial connection and all those things, because of my fear that I would allow myself to be deceived, as I saw my mother allow herself to be deceived. and set myself up for something similarly horrific,
Mm-hmm.
which would then, of course, not just impact me, but it would impact my husband, my child, my grandchildren, everybody. And so that's very helpful for me to know that, because, and to bring it to the forefront of my conscious thinking processes now, because now I can start working within myself about on those things, just clearing it. And it looks like I'm kind of dark and I don't know if it was too much light, but clearing it and freeing myself of all of the dregs of it, so I can go on.
Gone. Yeah, it's gone. So just to clarify on the statement I made earlier, as we were talking, I kind of double check now after what we've just uncovered. The prayer that you had in the hospital worked. However, there is an aspect of the experience that remained present, and because of what you needed to realize within your own being, and as well for other family members, like they need to know you expose that gracefully at the right time. But so that portion remained like a capsule energy that she was always linked to on a soul level. So now she's truly free to, because the truth is liberating her experience. Up to this point, she was always hanging and waiting for this moment, so now, and it was like a matter of urgency, like the time is coming now, you're meant to know this now. So the pain was becoming more and more to keep you look for, what is the cause of this? Connect me with someone who can help. So now that's right. Complete. So she was not trapped by these darker beings. It was just this element of that revelation that needed to occur. Yeah.
So in other words, what I'm understanding you to say is that the time had to come for me to be able to in a sense let her go with love and peace and healing light energy, because really there was a very strong, deep connection, love connection between my mom and me, and there was a huge amount of heartbreak for me personally, but not, everybody in the family loved her, the real her, the real her.
Yes.
And we never got to see the real her, from the time she, in a sense, became attached to by a negative entity. That real person, it's almost like she was soul scalped, like her spirit was either shoved deep inside somewhere in favor of this other stronger element that had placed itself within her physical body, and so we were never able to really know her. When she died, I couldn't cry over her death. I could only rejoice that she was now free of all of it in this life, because it had been such a painful journey for her. And I could finally, and all of us in the family could finally let go of our own grief, because it was a grief that could never be let go of. It was a grief that for me personally, that I carried in my heart of hearts every single day till the day she died, because I loved her, because I hated what was still clearly wrong in her life. And I felt powerless absolutely to help her get rid of it or move past it or grow, whatever. So this is very helpful to me on a really deep level. And I thank you for that. I do.
Remember, whenever there is pain, it's a side effect of anger that is suppressed in the body. And the anger is still also just a side effect of a deeper, more vulnerable emotion, which usually is sense of helplessness, not being in control of the situation, sadness, feeling unsafe, feeling not good enough, one of these. So whenever you will feel that, you need to work on those vulnerable emotions, connect to that part of you that felt that way, and start streaming motherly, fatherly love towards that part of you, and just acknowledge that the feelings are very valid. It was a very difficult experience, but there is a higher purpose to it. There's a higher meaning to it, and it all is well.
Awesome.